Yo, what is going on YouTube? This is your boy Dan, aka aDrive, bringing you guys the draft breakdown video for the Season 6 GBA New York Metapods. Of course, if you don't know, we were the champions last season in perhaps the toughest counter team league on YouTube with the St. Louis Rampardos. So I'm very excited for the franchise change to become the New York Metapods, and I'm also very excited to have this new team here, guys. I'm going to be breaking down each of my picks throughout the next, 20 minutes or 30 minutes or so, and hopefully you guys are excited for that. Definitely show your love on that like button down below, and be sure to give me your thoughts in the comment section below in terms of what you think of my overall draft and what you think our record is going to be. I believe there's 12 weeks this season, so let me know what you think we're going to do. Last season we went 7-5, which wasn't as good as I would have liked. The previous season we actually went 9-1 out of 10 games. Then we went 7-5, but we were able to narrowly make it into the playoffs by simply one kill, and then that ultimately led to our playoff run and ultimately winning the championship. So I was very excited about that. So as part of our championship team last season, guys, we had Victini on our team. Victini is a phenomenal Pokemon, base 100 stats across the board, and I wanted to franchise it. So if you don't know what franchising is in the GBA, you basically have the opportunity to keep one Pokemon from your team from the previous season and keep it for the next season, but you can only do that once per Pokemon. It does cost 40 points on your free agency point total, which basically hinders your long-term draft, but it gives you a really, really good Pokemon at the beginning. So I decided between Sylveon and Victini as the two main stars of my team in terms of, first round draft picks. I decided to go with Victini for a lot of reasons. The main reason being that I felt really comfortable with it towards the end of the season, and I felt that even though it wasn't the best Pokemon on my team, it definitely was a crucial part, and it's very challenging for my opponent to prepare for. So I figured if I was able to draft a team specifically around Victini, I would have a lot more success this season, and I'm really excited to have Victini again for another season because it's just such a good Pokemon, and the fact that it does have that V-Create with the base 100, gets that stab boost, and if you throw a Choice Band on there, very few things can take hits from a V-Create. So it's just simply a very good Pokemon that has a lot of options, including substitute sets and trick and choice scarfs and special attacking and physical attacking, and it's just so hard to prepare for. So I decided to keep Victini on my team, again at the cost of some points. But anyway, our first round pick came up here. I drafted 11th out of 16 teams, so because I came in first place and I won the championship, I was the last of the teams to draft with all the existing teams, and then the expansion teams actually went after me. So in this case, I was the 11th pick, and I was very surprised to see a lot of Pokemon fall to my 11th pick. You saw things like Landorus Therian and Mega Altaria, Mega Venusaur, and so on and so forth. And my original draft plan was to go Victini, Mega Venusaur, Rotom Wash. That was my plan moving into the draft. I said, all right, if I can get Mega Venusaur to fall to the 11th pick, I'll be able to grab Rotom Wash early second round, and that would be optimal for what I was planning. However, Mega Altaria was sitting there, and I toyed back and forth for quite a while between Mega Altaria and Mega Venusaur in my draft planning, and it was on my list. Mega Altaria was certainly on my list of Pokemon that I wanted to draft, and I was still tossed up, and as much as I loved Mega Venusaur, I decided to go Mega Altaria for a couple of reasons, which I'm going to explain. Mega Altaria, first of all, after the championship last season, I felt really comfortable with a Pokemon called Salamence. Salamence is a very good Pokemon that can be an offensive dragon from both physical and special perspective, with a decent speed stat, the ability to Dragon Dance, the ability to be specially offensive, and do a lot of different things. And I also fell in love with another Pokemon called Sylveon, a fairy type Pokemon that is a staple in this format. Fairies are so valuable because there's only so many good fairies and 16 teams, so it's very challenging to get a good fairy type. Dragon types are so good as well, and I was kind of caught up between those two, and I said, you know what? I'm not going to be able to get another Pokemon like Mega Altaria in this draft if I don't grab it now. Clefable's going to go before my next pick, and I don't really want Clefable. Sylveon's likely to go before my next pick, and I don't want Sylveon again. I already had it. So that leaves me with Florges, which I don't like because it's a little bit too passive and doesn't really have a lot of options in terms of versatility. So I said to myself, if I need a fairy, I don't want Mega Diancie either because I don't really trust Mega Diancie personally. I think it's a good Pokemon, but it's just not my kind of Pokemon. So if I'm going to get a fairy type, and I'm going to get a Pokemon that's going to be similar to what Salamence did for me, I should go Mega Altaria. So that was ultimately my decision there, to go with this monster that is Mega Altaria. Again, it has so many different options, from Cotton Guard to boosted defense, to being a cleric with Heal Bell, or to being able to Heal Bell, to having Roost for reliable recovery and refresh. It's got the options to Dragon Dance, Pixelate boost its attack, so it's essentially holding a Life Orb as well. It's just incredibly powerful, this Pokemon is, with its fairy typing, and there's very few things that can switch in on a fairy type move, Poison and Steel being really the only two, and this thing has Fire Blast for coverage for Steel type types, Earthquake to hit both Poison and Steel. It's just got so many options. It's such a great Pokemon, especially if you're able to kind of customize it to your opponent's team or whatever. And the offensive synergy between Victini and Mega Altaria is absolutely phenomenal. Victini struggles with things like, Victini can take on those Poison types and those Steel types with its Fire and its Psychic ability, and I felt like that was very crucial. And then obviously, it kind of absorbs those Fairy type hits that would otherwise be super effective on Altaria. Same with the Ice type moves. Victini can take both of those, so there's a lot of reasons why I felt like the offensive synergy between the two of them was too valuable to pass up, and I'm really, really excited to have this offensive core as the starting point for our New York Metapods for Season 6. Now, with that being said, kind of throwing out Mega Venusaur, as awesome as Mega Venusaur would have been and as amazing as that Pokemon would have been, I felt like going offensive early rounds was very, very valuable, because in the draft format, I personally believe that you can pick up defense mid to late rounds and have them be plug and play and make the defense work a little bit more versatile, but I feel like offense is a little bit more challenging. I think there's only a small number of top echelon offensive threats. I mean, you could say the same for defensive, but I think you can customize your defensive threats a little bit better, but the top, small percentage of offensive threats, I felt like it was in my best interest to capitalize on. So Victini, Mega Altaria are our first two Pokemon that we're going to be rocking with. Just to clarify, Victini's nickname will be V-Drive, and of course it's going to be in the Cherish Ball. Mega Altaria will be shiny form. Its nickname is going to be Nimbus, I believe. Did I go with Nimbus or did I go with Snitch? I went with Nimbus. So I was going to go with Snitch because of the golden Snitch, but I went with Nimbus, reference to Harry Potter and just Cumulonimbus Clouds and Nimbus Clouds, whatever else. So kind of cool there. It will be shiny form, of course, this season, and I'll be telling you guys all the nicknames I decided to pick and everything like that. So moving into round 2, lots of good things went, but I really wanted to kind of draft a team that I was comfortable with and a team that I felt was going to be the most effective. So I decided to go with Rotom Wash as my next pick. So Rotom Wash, if you don't know, was on my GBA Season 4 championship team that I ended up losing in the championship, but we went 9-1 with this thing, and I brought it to, I think, every single week. I think it was the only Pokemon that I brought every single week in Season 4, and for a reason, and that was another thing I wanted to focus on, was I wanted to draft Pokemon that I felt would be viable almost every single week, and Rotom, obviously, one of the best OU Pokemon, very good in VGC, it's just a good Pokemon in general, having only one weakness because of its Levitate ability. It only is weak to Grass, and guess what? I have 2 Grass resistances already on my team, so I felt like the synergy there was very important. I also felt like the fact that it's a great Volt Switcher, and forming a Volt Turn combo with Volt Switch and U-Turn with Victini would also add a lot of viability to my team and a lot of stability to my team, and give me a Pokemon like Rotom, which can be, again, so versatile, being able to be specially offensive. It could be like a Choice Scarf or a Choice Specs variant with Trick. It can be a defensive Pokemon from both sides, and its typing and its only one weakness to Grass type is very easy to work with, because if my opponent wants to run HP Grass to hit Rotom, chances are it's really not going to be that effective just because of how bulky this thing is. You've got options like Resto Chesto and Pain Split, Will-O-Wisp to shut down physical attackers, and I just really felt like Rotom was a great pickup for round 2. I feel like it's got so much versatility again, and its typing makes it so good. Despite its low HP stat, which we could probably work around, Rotom Wash is just such a good staple, and when I'm looking at my team here and I see the first 3 picks and only 2 rounds in, I'm like, wow, I've done really well so far. Victini, Rotom Wash, Mega Altaria, this was like my game plan. My original plan, like I said, was Mega Venusaur, but I pretty much nailed what I wanted here. I got my Fire type, I've got my Water type, I've got my Fairy and my Dragon type. I'm covering a lot of bases here. Now what I need is a Steel type and a Grass type, 2 of those Pokemon to round out my defensive and offensive cores. Fairy, Dragon, Steel, Fire, Water, Grass, 2 key cores that you would usually focus on in a draft league format. Last season, we were able to dominate with a Fairy, Dragon, Steel core, Mega Aggron, Sylveon, and Salamence. This year, I wanted to see if I can get both of them and utilize both of them to the maximum effectiveness to hopefully give my team a lot of resistances and a lot of opportunities to kind of help each other out in terms of just team synergy in general. So the next Pokemon we decided to pick up was, of course, Ferrothorn here. Some reminiscence of the Real Marill last season, grabbing Mega Altaria and Ferrothorn. I felt like grabbing Ferrothorn in the 3rd round was absolutely crucial. This was a tier 2 Pokemon, which of course doubles up on my Rotom Wash there, so now we have 2 tier 2s. But I really liked Ferrothorn in this spot because, as I'm going to be honest, I've really never used Ferrothorn. I've used Ferroseed, never really used Ferrothorn before. Obviously, it's got 2 core weaknesses, right? Fire types, which is 4 times super effective. I have 3 fire resistances already on my team, and the other type that it's weak to is fighting type, and I have 2 fighting resistances on my team, including Victini and Mega Altaria. So I felt really, really good about those 2 options in terms of Ferrothorn fitting with the team synergy at this point. And what this does is 3 picks into my draft, including my franchise. Here we are in round 3, and I've already finished my Fire, Water, Grass core and my Fairy Dragon Steel core. Ferrothorn and Mega Altaria form perfect synergy between the 2 of them to get a Fairy Dragon Steel core. And then you've got Rotom Wash, Victini, and Ferrothorn, the grass, the water, and the fire, all working together. Very, very good Pokemon. This gives me a Stealth Rock setter, a Hazard setter in general, just a great defensive Pokemon with a ton of bulk on both sides. A little bit slow, but Ferrothorn does have some offensive options as well, so that's really important to talk about. Let me just backtrack too, because I did forget. The Rotom Wash's nickname will actually be Voltergeist, not Luke's mom this season. I like the name Voltergeist. Someone tweeted at me, I believe it was my friend Armord, and actually one other person gave me the idea for the name Voltergeist. I loved it. I thought that was really cool. Play on the word Poltergeist, of course. And discussing Ferrothorn here, I decided to go with Ivy. Ivy was, of course, the nickname of the Cage Lock Ferroseed that never quite made it too far with Munching Orange there. But, you know, so that's going to be that. Both of them are, or this one's going to be female. Rotom obviously doesn't have a gender, but they will both be their non-shiny variants. But I'm really excited for Ferrothorn. Like I said, it does have some offensive pressure with Gyro Ball and Power Whip and things like that. It can be a Leech Seeder. It can do a lot of things. You can run Protect to Scout for HP Fire. And honestly, like, HP Fire, like, okay, yeah, you're going to run it, but, like, what are you gonna do when 3 of my switch-ins all can take that HP Fire, and then all of a sudden this thing just hard walls things? And I think it's one of those Pokemon that is gonna catch a lot of people off guard this season. I don't expect it to like lead my team in kills, but I think Ferrothorn is gonna be very crucial for the entire mold of our team, and I'm very excited to use it. I think it's gonna be such a good Pokemon. All right, so here we're gonna go into round 4. I decided to go Hitmontop, and this is the first time I was sniped in this draft at this point. I think I was about 3 or 4 picks away, and I believe Envy, you know, the coach of the Chimp Chargers, ended up grabbing Donphan here, and that was probably one of the only times I was sniped in this draft. There was only 2 instances, and that was the first one. I really wanted Donphan. I felt like this team, you throw Donphan in the mix here, and it's, oh my god, this team all of a sudden looks absolutely insane. You get a Rapid Spinner, a Stealth Rocker, hard-hitting, and a physically defensive Pokemon. I felt like Donphan was like the perfect Pokemon right now, but unfortunately it was drafted a little bit before me. I felt like 4th round was pretty appropriate for Donphan, but maybe I should have held off on Ferrothorn, went for Donphan first, but I really felt like Ferrothorn was a little bit more crucial. So now, once Donphan went, I was like, okay, now I have a tough decision to make. Do I grab Empoleon, or do I go down to tier 4 and grab Hitmontop? Because I realized that I have 2 Pokemon that are weak to Stealth Rocks, and while Altaria isn't that weak once it switches out, like after Mega Evolution, I just felt like it was important to grab a good Rapid Spinner, because this is something my teams have in the past pretty much lacked. I mean, I had Blastoise last season, but I felt like I really kind of lacked a good, reliable Rapid Spinner, and I've always wanted to use Hitmontop. I feel like on paper, it looks like a pretty good Pokemon. It gives me some priority with Sucker Punch and Mach Punch, Fake Out as well. I love Toxic, kind of Rapid Spin defensive Pokemon. Guy has Technician, and it's got Intimidate, which is really cool, which makes him a little bit more viable from the physically defensive perspective than he otherwise would be. He's a great Assault Vest option, which I love. I love the fact that he can go for Intimidate and have the Assault Vest, so he's not only getting that boost to his defenses essentially from the physical, but also the special side. And fighting's not a bad typing in general. It's got some options with Stone Edge and things like that, so Hitmontop is not something to be slept on, and I felt like diving into tier 4 was going to give me more options in tier 3 later, because there was a lot in tier 3 that I liked at this time, so it didn't really bother me that I was going all the way to tier 4 right now for Hitmontop. Again, I did want Donphan. Toyed with the idea of Empoleon, but the reason why I went against Empoleon is because I didn't feel that I wanted to have a Defogger that was my rock setter. I'd rather have you know, a dedicated Rapid Spinner, because Rapid Spinners are typically better than Defoggers, obviously, in the fact that, you know, they give you the opportunity to remove hazards from your side of the field, but not the opponent's, so that's pretty obvious. And I didn't want to have a Defogger as my primary hazard removal, because I really wanted a Toxic Spike setter on this team, especially with Ferrothorn. I felt like with Ferrothorn, potentially getting another hazard setter like a T-Spike setter, I didn't want a Defogger as my primary remover. So once Donphan was gone, that was my options. I decided to name this guy Dreidel. It will be non-shiny, of course, and it will be a male. in a Great Ball. So there you go. So that's our little Hitmo on top there. And at this point in the draft, I felt really good. I was like really happy about the offensive synergy we had between Victini and Mega Altaria. Rotom Wash gave me a great pivot, and Ferrothorn obviously was there as a great defensive Pokemon. So entering round 5, I was a little unsure of what I was going to go for, but I saw Chansey on the board as a tier 2, and I did some intense calculations to calculate out my point total to see if I grab 3 tier 2s, is that going to make sense? That keeps me from grabbing another tier 1, and it kind of limits my options for tier 3s, but I think I can make this structure work, and I was just blown away in my mind that Chansey was sitting there in round 5, and it was not on my draft plan to grab Chansey. It really wasn't. But after having it in Season 4 and taking it to a championship, I know how Chansey works. I know how good this Pokemon is. And I understand a lot of people look negatively upon Chansey because it's a bulky Pokemon. It's a pain in the butt to take down. It's the best specially defensive Pokemon of the game. And it's arguably one of the best physically defensive Pokemon of the game too, because if it's a Violite. So if you're able to take knockoffs, all of a sudden Chansey becomes an insane Pokemon because it can't be beaten. Like, it's very rare that a Pokemon can knock out Chansey in one hit, and special attackers typically take 3 to 5 to 6 hits to take this thing down just because it's so bulky and it has reliable recovery with soft boiled. It's got the ability to stealth rock as well, which helps out Ferrothorn, taking some of the pressure off of Ferrothorn, allowing Ferrothorn to rock with spikes or leech seed and some other options. It's got the ability to heal bell and aromatherapy, and I love running counter Chansey, guys. It's no doubt that I'm going to bring that a lot. Counter Chansey's phenomenal because it makes up for the fact that it has a lower physically defense stat, and it keeps your opponent from wanting to click any offensive moves, because if they hit me with a close combat, I'm probably going to live it, and I'm going to bounce a counter back and then pick up a free kill. So if you didn't know, in Season 4, Chansey was actually one of the top Pokemon on my team in kills because I got so many counter kills. It's just that good, and it's that viable. And again, I understand that people tend to get frustrated because I go with a more bulky type of team, but that's my playstyle. That's what I like the most, and I drafted this team to try to go to my 3rd straight championship in this league. And again, this is the most challenging league on YouTube in terms of this format, and the fact that we've gone to 2 championships in a row is absolutely astounding. You know, it was awesome to win the championship last season, but now we have an opportunity to win a 3rd one, or win a 2nd one in a row and a 3rd one in a row, to go to a 3rd one in a row. And that's just crazy. That's just absolutely crazy, because I don't really consider myself to be the best battler out there, but I'm really proud of how we've performed over the last couple seasons. And this season, I'm expecting, you know, obviously I'm going to put my full effort out there, but it is more... It's a little bit less pressure for me this season because I don't have to stress about proving myself anymore. I don't have to prove myself to anyone in the audience, and I don't have to prove myself to myself anymore. Like, I've demonstrated what I needed to demonstrate, going to 5 straight championships in different leagues and just continuously doing really well. So hoping to continue that trend this season. I think Chansey is really going to help out our team in trying to accomplish those goals just because of how bulky it is and just shuts down special attackers. I can't believe we were able to grab it in the 5th round, in all honesty. So Chansey's nickname is going to be Sunnyside, which was one of the nicknames I used in Season 4. It will not be shiny, and it is going to obviously be female in a Premier Ball. So very excited for Chansey, and I think it's going to be great. Obviously, its only weakness is Fighting type. I have 2 Pokemon that really resist Fighting type in Victini and Mega Altaria, and one other point I want to bring out here is one of the things that Chansey fears the most is knockoff. I happen to have a Pokemon called Ferrothorn, which has Iron Barbs, so if you want to hit knockoff on that thing, you're going to be losing a ton of health. And then I actually have one of the best knockoff switch-ins in the game, which is Mega Altaria, which of course after Mega Evolution resists the knockoff and has a Mega Stone, so it's really going to do very little. So I felt like the synergy there was super crucial and very important, and I thought it was going to make it work out really well because, like I said, Mega Altaria is one of the best knockoff switch-ins in the game, and knockoff is relatively predictable on Chansey. One other point to note too is the only way utility Pokemon are, in most cases, are going to be able to hit Ferrothorn with a 4-time super effective fire move is through Hidden Power Fire. Chansey cares not about any Hidden Power. You could bring Hidden Power Fighting, you could bring Hidden Power Super Fighting, and it doesn't matter because Chansey is just so specially bulky, and that's really cool. So our 6th Pokemon here coming into the 6th round of the draft, or 7th Pokemon overall, is going to be our Galvantula. Now, I did notice on my team here that the team was a little bit slow. Our fastest Pokemon being Victini at 100 base speed, Rotom Wash being at 86, and Altaria being at base 80, so we did have a little bit of speed issues here, and I was kind of tossed up about what I was going to do with that. So I knew that Galvantula would be the answer to these problems, and I wanted to draft Galvantula heading into the draft. It was on my radar. And I feel like we picked it up in the perfect round. I needed some tier 3s anyway, so before I got too far into the other stuff. So Galvantula just made perfect sense, man. This thing is amazing at base 108 speed. It's got a decent special attack stat, and I ran a crazy amount of calcs prior to this draft to determine how effective Galvantula would be from an offensive perspective as a fast electric type. And it's crazy because you can run Thunder over T-Bolt because of your compound eyes, and you hit, I think 91% of the time is Thunder is going to hit, plus a 30% paralyzed chance. That makes this thing like incredibly strong. It makes it stronger than a lot of other electric types that might have, you know, more staggering base stat totals. You might be like, okay, well, Galvantula's base special attack is like 97. That's really weak, but when you factor in the fact that you're firing off Thunders instead of Thunderbolts or Volt Switches or whatever, that extra damage makes a huge difference when it comes to hitting things super effectively. And that 30% poison or paralyzed chance is huge, especially in a team that relies so much on, you know, pivoting and defensive Pokemon, and then giving an opportunity to Mega Altaria or Victini to clean up. And the sticky web element is just another bonus. Galvantula is obviously the best sticky web setter in the game, maybe next to Smeargle or Shuckle, but Galvantula is typically the top tiered sticky web setter. And sticky web is going to allow my team to slow my opponent down and give Victini an opening, give Mega Altaria an opening. I mean, how scary is that? Victini and Mega Altaria with sticky web support? Unheard of, man. Unheard of. I don't know. I mean, that makes Victini pretty much outspeed everything in the game if they're not levitating or flying. So that's pretty good, and that allows me to give some more options. I don't have to run Scarfs as much because I do have the ability to run Sticky Webs. So, sorry. So there's a lot of options here. And I think Galvantula is really going to round out this team and give me a lot of opportunities for hyper offensive, to go bulky. And another thing too to mention, in the GBA format and the Draft League format in general, it's been proven time and time again that fast electric type Pokemon are one of the most effective types of Pokemon in this format because they just outspeed things and they can Volt Switch and they gain so much momentum for you and things like that. And I felt like Galvantula really works with that too, having the ability to be a fast electric type to pair with Rotom Wash and, you know, give me another grass resist with the bug typing. And bug type's really cool. They're my favorite type, of course. So I'm really excited to try Galvantula. I think with the sticky web support, it's going to be crucial to my team. It's going to be really awesome. Nickname for this guy is going to be Aragog, not Skippy. I love the name Skippy, of course, but I am going to go with Aragog, which is the nickname of my first ever Galvantula that I got when X and Y came out. Obviously, it's a reference to Lord of the Rings, and this thing is going to be shiny, and it will be in a net ball, and it's going to look awesome as ever. I'm really excited for Mr. Aragog here. Now, our next pick, going into the 7th pick here, I was kind of looking at our tier 3s, looking at some other options. I couldn't pass up Dragalge, all right? Like, I know this is where people are going to say, oh my god, you're copying Miguel's team last season, and yeah, there's some elements, Mega Altaria, Ferrothorn, Dragalge, but the offensive synergy between the three of them is absolutely insane, and the defensive synergy is phenomenal as well. Dragalge is going to resist fire typing. It's going to resist fighting typing, which those two work really well with Ferrothorn already. It's going to resist grass typing, 4 times resisting grass, which helps out Rotom so much. I mean, you can see as you kind of see this team being constructed here, I put in so much planning this season. I am kind of the person who doesn't really plan for drafts, but this season I planned and I had notes and I ran hundreds of calculations prior to the draft to ensure that I could draft a team that I felt was going to be incredibly fluid, I guess is the term I want to use, fluid, and Dragalge really added to that. I love dragon types in this format because if your opponent doesn't have a fairy type or a steel type, they get kind of messed up. And the other thing about Dragalge is it has coverage for steel types and it has coverage for fairy types in its Sludge Wave, adaptability Sludge Wave, and also gets Focus Blast as well. So many options for Dragalge, and this gives me my Toxic Spike setter that I was so looking for, which makes Hitmontop that much more crucial. Dragalge is going to be a huge part of this team. That adaptability, Draco Meteor, and Sludge Wave is just insane, guys. It hits so incredibly hard. Again, its special attack stat doesn't look that great, and it's a little bit slow, and it has a good, decent bulk, but, excuse me, that adaptability makes this thing hit so hard with 2 moves that are stab that have high base power. Draco Meteor all of a sudden becomes this move that just absolutely decimates teams when you throw a Life Orb or a Choice Specs on this, or even like a Draco Plate or whatever it's called, Dragon Fang or you know, Dragon Plate or whatever it's called. I really like Dragalge for a lot of reasons, and I think this thing is going to be a monster on our team. It's going to probably be one of our primary offensive threats this season, especially with sticky web support too. You can't kind of rule that out. All of a sudden, you're making this thing have sticky web support, and now that base 44 speed, when invested a little bit, doesn't seem too bad when you're able to set those webs up and kind of slow some of the mid-tier speed threats out of the way. So very, very cool Pokemon. I'm excited to use Dragalge. I think its synergy with the rest of the team is phenomenal. Gives me another fighting resist as well for Chansey and Ferrothorn, like I said before, and it's just beautiful. And poison types are pretty effective in this format as well. So the nickname for this guy is going to be Adept, which is kind of a play on adaptability. This thing is adept and ready to rock and roll, and it's going to be no shiny, but it will be a male. So I kind of feel it. I'm really excited for Dragalge this season. Now, moving into the 8th round here, I realized I needed a couple more, maybe some tier 3s, some tier 4s or whatever, and I do need a tier 5, so kind of some tough decisions to make, but I was very excited this Pokemon was available because I almost grabbed this Pokemon instead of grabbing Hitmontop so many rounds back. I was able to grab Flygon, one of my favorite Pokemon in the game. I love the design of Flygon. I know it tends to be looked down upon or overshadowed by things like Salamence and stuff like that, but this thing is one of the best hazard removers in the game. It is immune to spikes and T-spikes because of its levitate. It resists Stealth Rock, and it has Defog. I mean, those things alone make this thing a phenomenal entry hazard remover, and it's got a decent attack stat at 100, a good speed stat at 100, decent stats across the board. Does have a 4x ice weakness, but Chansey doesn't care about HP ice, you know what I mean? Rotom doesn't care about ice moves, Victini doesn't care about ice moves, so we have a couple different options there, and I really think Flygon could put in some serious work this season. The nickname for this Flygon is going to be Jet, just simply Jet. It will be shiny, and it will be male in a nest ball, and again, this gives me a second option for hazard removal, giving me a Defogger in addition to a Rapid Spinner. But I also like the offensive pressure that this thing can put on. Give me another U-turner, and it gives me a ground type. And ground types are so important because they stop electric spam. They stop volt switching in its tracks. I have options. Excuse me, I have options with Ferrothorn. Guys, I'm so sorry. I'm like really tired today. I have options with Ferrothorn to take U-turns and stuff like that. And we've got this thing to take volt switches and stop the electric types. And its speed stat is pretty good. It's got some versatility in being especially offensive with Earth Power, Draco Meteor. It's got some physical utility as well. It could be a roost set, like a bulky roost set with Toxic. It's got a lot of options, and its typing isn't bad either. Being able to take, with that Levitate, being able to take a lot of different moves, being able to take Fire type hits and things like that, Rock type hits. So I really, really like Flygon. I think it's a huge, huge piece of this team, and I was so glad I was able to draft this thing this late in the draft because I personally value this thing as like a 4th, 5th, maybe 6th round pick. And here we are, I believe this is the 8th round, and I'm like grabbing Flygon over here in the 8th round. I'm like, are you kidding me? There's no good Rapid Spinners and Defoggers like left to draft at this point, pretty much. As you see, Claydol actually was the previous pick. Very few options left, and I was like, I'm about to grab Flygon. And of course, what we have 3 dragons, baby. We got Dragalge, Flygon, and Mega Altaria. So I'm not Daenerys Targaryen, but maybe I'm gonna walk on the Iron Throne for another season here, because that's my throne, guys. I'm claiming it right now. That's my throne. So we got Jet here, the Flygon. Will be shiny, of course, and again, I think it's gonna be huge for this team. I'm so excited for this Pokemon. Now, moving into round 9, I was looking at the teams, and I was like, all right, well, I need a tier 5 and a tier 4. That's basically what it comes down to, or 2 tier 5s if I wanted. So I was like, you know what? I think I want to pick something offensive. I want to pick something really, really offensive, because I've got the bulk. I've got Chansey. I've got Ferrothorn. Mega Altaria can be defensive. Even Victini can be defensive. Rotom Wash, I have enough bulk. Like, I think I can cover the weaknesses I need, or the offensive threats I need to cover with Chansey and Ferrothorn and things like that. So let me grab some offense here. So jumping into round 9, Medicham was there, and I personally am a very strong believer that Medicham is a sleeper in the Draft League format. This is one of those Pokemon that I think could totally lead the team in kills when the season's done. This totally could be one of those Pokemon that's in the top kills of the league at the end of the season. I have high hopes for it. I'm not relying on it being my biggest offensive threat. I obviously have other Pokemon that can take on the load, but I think because of that, Medicham becomes even more effective than it otherwise would be. Let's not even talk about the fact that it's got Sticky Whip support with it, making that base 80 speed all of a sudden way more viable. You've got that attack stat with Pure Power that goes to sky-high heights. I think it's about almost 170 base power equivalent. That means this thing hits as hard as a Kyurem Black from the physical side. That is absolutely mind-blowing. This thing has a great offensive move in high jump kick. Now, obviously, obviously you run the risk of missing or you run the risk of protect, but a lot of times people don't really prepare for high jump kick. You just kind of deal with it. Drain punch, ice punch. It's got, you know, Zen headbutt and psycho cut. So there's some options there. And this thing just hits so hard. I can't tell you how many times, guys, in other leagues, I brought this thing in choice scarf or whatever, and I send it out. I just click high jump kick 4 times and win the match, like to clean up the game. It's ridiculous how good this thing is if it's not prepared for enough. And again, because it's like one of my later picks and less of a threat than maybe Victini or Mega Altaria, I think that's going to make Metacham shine even more. Now, there's one other point I wanted to bring up about this thing. It does get priority from the physical side with Bullet Punch. It also gets Fake Out as well, so 2 really cool moves that allow him to give me some priority and give me some momentum as well. Gets Baton Pass and things like that. So Metacham is a very good Pokemon, and it doesn't take up my Mega slot. I got to get Metacham without getting Mega Metacham, which is awesome, by the way. But Metacham by itself, I think, could put in some work because, like I said, that high jump kick, it's so hard, man. It hits so hard if you're Scarfed or even if you're Banded or Life Orb. It just hits so hard. It's ridiculous. Like, you could, like, OHKO like a Mandibuzz, basically, from, like, full, pretty much. This thing is insane. So, really excited for Metacham, and I think with the Sticky Web support and stuff, this thing is going to be a monster. Now, moving into our final pick here, we're in tier 5, and I kind of tossed up a little bit here because I could have went for a more fun pick. I could have went with like a Motham or like a mascot type pick. I almost went with Rampardos. I was really thinking about Rampardos because I figured with Sticky Web support or Rock Polish Rampardos, I could just head smash my opponents to victory. So lots of cool things in tier 5, but I decided to go with one of my personal favorites. I went with Gourgeist here. Just to kind of touch on the Metacham, the nickname will be Blueberry, of course, after my man Galactic Elliot. It will be female and a dive ball. But here is Gourgeist, aka Jack, and it's going to be a male, and it will most certainly be shiny and purple because I love Gourgeist, my favorite 6th gen Pokemon here. Gourgeist is a very cool Pokemon, and again, this is another Pokemon from Miguel's team last season, but I had Gourgeist in Season 4, and I brought it to a championship as well, and while I only brought it to maybe 1 or 2 matches, its impact was felt. It gives me a good Grass-type Pokemon aside from Ferrothorn that can take Fighting-type hits, so that's really cool. So if you're preparing for Ferrothorn with a Fighting-type, I bring Gourgeist, and they just, like, not even a big deal. Gourgeist also has multiple forms it could run. It could be like the bulky set, it could be this fast Subseeder set, really cool stuff. It's got fire coverage if you want to take on other grass types with like Flame Charge and Fire Blast and things like that. And again, I wanted the Ghost type for a Spin Blocker because Spin Blockers are very valuable, especially when you're running like Toxic Spikes or Galaxy and things like that, and your opponent has a good Rapid Spinner. You want to be able to switch in a Ghost type so they can't Rapid Spin and allow to clear the field there. So I felt like Gourgeist is a great Pokemon for this role, and it's just one of my personal favorites. So it was a little bit more of a fun pick, I think, but I think that Gourgeist can actually be pretty useful this season. So that is my team right there, guys. Franchise Victini, grab Mega Altaria in the first round, Rotom Wash in the second round, grabbing Ferrothorn next, Hitmon top, Chansey. Then we went Galvantula, Dragalge. I believe we jumped down for Flygon, Metacham, and Gourgeist to wrap out our draft there. So really, really cool team. I'm very excited about the New York Metapods team this season, guys. I think we have a phenomenal team. I don't know what our record's going to be. I don't know if we're going to win the championship again. Whatever, man. I'm just trying to have fun. Hopefully give you guys some really epic matches every single week. The competition is at an all-time high this season. It's absolutely insane. Like, the competition this season is like ridiculous, but I think we have the team that can do it. I think we have the offensive threats, the defensive threats, the type synergy. I think we nailed it. I honestly think this is the best team I've ever had in the Draft League format. I feel really comfortable with a lot of these Pokemon. I've used Flygon, I've used Metacham, I've used Chansey, I've used Mega Altaria limitedly. I've used similar Pokemon. I've used Gourgeist, and I've used, you know, Hitmon top, and I've used Galvantula and Rotom and Victini. So a lot of these Pokemon I've used really extensively. So I think that's also going to help with my planning and help with my matchmaking and my game plan and whatever else. So I'm hyped, guys. I'm hyped. So I hope you guys are as well. All my Metapods fans out there, get hyped. Mr. Metapod is hyped, and he is chilling, and he's ready to rock and roll. So get excited for that, guys. Show your love on that like button down below. Subscribe if you're new. And let me know what your thoughts are on the Metapods draft. Let me know what you think our record is going to be at 12 games. And I'm going to catch you guys next time. My name is Dan. I'm the coach of your New York Metapods. I'll see you guys later. Peace.